Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Red Hour, a show I do twice a week where I throw a little chaos into Star Trek by reviewing a random episode. Okay, so a couple things here. I just want to say, I try not to be too political on this show. But I think I try to be clear on where I stand as well, and so every once in a while I'll talk about certain things, you know. Um, but today, in case you haven't heard, conservative talker, speaker Charlie Kirk was assassinated today, and we still don't know who did it and what the motivation is. I'm gonna go ahead and go out on a limb and say that it was politically motivated, and these things are not gonna stop. I think they're gonna get worse, and I definitely would say do not go out there and try to retaliate against the left or whoever you think are the bad guys. We're all Americans. We need to start acting like it again. And I know it's hard. It can be. But that's what they want. They want us divided. The elites want us divided. I don't know commie by any stretch of the matter, but some things are true, and there is a class divide in this country. But I'll go ahead and say it. I'm more libertarian leaning, meaning if there's a libertarian policy that can be put in place, I'm gonna lean towards that, as long as it's reasonable. Some libertarian policies are not reasonable, and I'm not an anarchist either. But I can agree with some on the left. Our healthcare system is broken. Our judicial system is broken. I do not believe in private prisons. If the state thinks that they should incarcerate you, and they've proven that, through a jury of your peers, then it should be up to them to do it. But that's I don't want to get into that. I just wanted to make that quick statement and get away from the bad things in the world and talk about a good thing, which is Star Trek. Well, most of the time. And as you can see, my stepbrother bought me this shirt a couple years ago, and it's basically it's the captain from this episode and Picard as if they were in a band, and this was like their live event, Darmock and Jalad at Tanagra, and then it says Shaka when the walls fell. So I thought that it would be appropriate to wear this shirt. I don't know where he found it, but he sent it to me. I think it might have been for my birthday. I don't remember. Anyway, today's episode is The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 2, Darmock. And so the episode starts off with a captain's log, and I can't read my own handwriting once again. And they're meeting up with the Temerians. They call them some Temerian something, but we call them the Temerians. And the Temerians are sending a signal out that Starfleet believes is a signal that they want to reach out in peace. And I guess over like 100 years or so, different vessels have encountered the Temerians before, but they've never been able to communicate with them because they communicate in a strange way. And I'm not gonna, even though this is, an old episode, and if you're here, you've probably already seen it. So I'm not gonna spoil it. We'll get to that point when we get there. So Picard asks, so they're on the view screen, and they're talking in this weird way, and Picard can't understand them, and he's trying to ask them if they want to exchange ideas and normal Starfleet type stuff. And then he turns to Counselor Troy, and she is useful for a change, and says that she doesn't sense any. All she senses is good intents. So on their ship, the Temerian ship, they seem to be arguing amongst each other over something, but you can't understand what they're saying. And then the captain finally says Darmock and Jalad at Tanagra, to where his his first officer kind of looks at him with this look like basically that's not a good idea, and he basically tells him to fuck off. So they beam Picard and this captain down to this planet below, and they black out the transporters and make it so they can't transport Picard back up to the ship. So that's the teaser. And then we get to on the ship, they can't use communicators, so they can't communicate with Picard. And on the planet, the captain has these two knives that he holds out, and Picard is asking him questions. It's like, do you want me to fight you? Is this some sort of challenge? And Worf also thinks it's some sort of challenge, and he hands Picard throws Picard the knife. Picard picks it up and says he's not going to fight him, and throws it back down. And the captain, this guy, is kind of frustrated. And back on the ship, they hail the Temerian ship, and Riker's trying to talk to them and get the situation figured out, but he doesn't understand anything, and basically ends the hail, and then decides to send a shuttle down to the planet and see if that's... He gambles that they're not going to fire on the shuttle. So he wants to send a shuttle down to the planet. So back on the planet below, it's nighttime, and this captain, the Temerian captain, has built a fire, and Picard is, maybe 50 feet away or whatever, and is trying to build a fire and is struggling. And he's basically freezing, because it's cold at night, and Picard tries to introduce himself. He says, "I'm Picard of the Enterprise. We're from Earth." And the guy doesn't understand. The Temerian captain starts doing some sort of ritual where he has these things on his uniform that he places on the rocks and does this thing with his head like this, and Picard's watching him do it. And so then the captain, the Temerian guy, takes his knife and lays down with the knife in his hand to try to sleep. And like I said, Picard is like freezing. So the captain brings him fire and says timber with his arms wide open, which makes me think of that Creed song, with arms wide open. And the thing about this language is it's actual English words with alien language intermixed. So the captain brings him the fire, and Picard is kind of asking him about timber with arms wide open, and he's asking if timber means wood, because timber means wood to us. And then he kind of figures out that timber is like the name of a person, and is to give something. Back on the ship, they get the shuttle ready, and it's Worf and some other random chick, and they start to fly down to the planet, and the Temerian ship fires on them, and takes out their thrusters, their starboard thrusters. So Worf can basically land, but he can't take off. So he has to go back to the ship. So they're discussing what to do next, and Worf wants to attack the ship, and of course is shut down because one of the running gags, whether it's intentional or not, is that when Worf wants something, he gets told by the captain, no. And it's usually like attacking the ship or something. Very Klingon of him. So the next day, Picard wakes up and this captain is gone, and he's inspecting the camp. So he walked over to his camp and finds like those little things that he put on the rocks, and then he finds like a captain's log, or what looks like a captain's log. And the guy comes running back, and he thinks that he's mad at him because he's looking at the log, but he takes that knife again and hands Picard the knife, and Picard throws it down, and all of a sudden you hear this scary noise, what sounds like some sort of beast out in the distance, and he's the Temerian captain is telling Picard to stand like over here, not over here. And Picard doesn't understand at first, but he takes the knife because he sounds like there's a bear, or some sort of animal out there. And he's like, okay, I understand what you're saying. So it takes him a couple of times, but then the animal, the beast, like appears, and it has like a cloaking device, so you can kind of see it and kind of don't. And then back on the ship, Riker instructs Data and Troy to try to figure out a way to talk to these people. So they're asking the computer, or they're looking through the conversation that the Temerians had amongst themselves on the ship when they were arguing over the plan. And they asked the ship for the word Darmock, which comes up, and there's like 47 entries. and then Troy is saying how they've met so many, so many species and stuff, and they've never had this big of a problem. And then Data says that he's met 1,754 races encountered. So then they cross-reference another word, Tanagra, and with Darmock, and then it comes out to Chantal 3. And then the so then they're trying to beam Picard back up, but there's like an electromagnetic disturbance, and they're working on the transporters. And I think this is the episode with Ashley Judd, but I haven't looked it up. And I don't know if maybe she's in more than one episode. So Picard finally figures out like that they need to fight the monster together, and they're stabbing it, and the Tamarian captain's like stabbing at it and stuff, and the Tamarian captain is injured and is knocked down. In the middle of the fight, they're trying to beam up Picard, and Picard's like, no. He does, which is similar to the no we hear in First Contact, though not as dramatic. And he's basically sitting there watching this captain getting torn to shreds by this beast while he can't do anything because he's being beamed up. But the Tamarian ship is interfering with the beaming and makes it harder. Basically, at the end they can't beam him up. So it's at night, and the captain is like dying, or he doesn't have any medical treatment, and he's talking with Picard, and Picard wants to understand more about Darmock and what Tanagra is and all those things. And the captain tells a story about how, and he draws stuff out with a stick and a rock and stuff. Basically, over the conversation, he comes to understand that Tanagra was a place, an island, in the ocean, and Darmock and Jalad were two different people that ended up on that island that didn't know each other before, and they had to fight this beast together, and as a result, they become friends. So Picard realizes that this was this captain's idea, was to have, he knew that there was a beast on this planet, and that he wanted to recreate the same situation so that they become friends and they can move forward with relations. So the captain is dying, the Tamarian captain, and he wants Picard to tell him a story, and Picard says, I'm not a good storyteller. I don't really know any good stories. And the captain gets upset, and so Picard tells the story of Gilgamesh, and how Gilgamesh was like a unruly leader, and the people he ruled over wished for somebody, the gods, to bring him a companion. And so this companion shows up, and they fought for days and days, and they fought at different areas, and I forget the name of the guy, and eventually became friends. And then at the end, the friend died, and at that time, the captain dies. So it's kind of poetic. It rhymes. uh, so back on the ship, Riker's still frustrated with this situation, and they find out that the Tamaran captain has died, but finally Worf gets his way, and they attack the ship to break down the barrier that's keeping them from beaming up Picard. And Data explains to Riker how they talk. So they talk in metaphors, or sort of like how we talk in memes in a way. So if I were to, and then Troy says, if I were to say to you, Juliet on the balcony, and then Dr. Crusher says, oh, it would be like an indication of love. But the problem is Data says it's like learning grammar without the knowing the language. So if you know the grammar of Spanish or whatever, but you don't know what the words mean, then it doesn't matter. So then they fire on the ship. I got things events a little bit backwards, but that's okay. So they fire on the ship and bring Picard back up, and then they hail him. Picard says hail them, and the first officer is like yelling at them and telling them, basically trying to figure out what's going on. And Picard says something to them that they would understand, and basically tells the story of what happened, and that the captain had died. And they bow their heads, and he offers the knife back to them, and the guy basically tells him to keep it. So then we're in Picard's ready room. Riker comes in to talk to him about the situation, and notices that Picard's reading Homer. And Picard says, well, we should learn each other's language better so that we can understand people better, and form friendships. And then the last shot is Picard from outside of the ship in the ready room, the same shot you see in First Contact, at the beginning, and he's holding the knife, and he does a little thing, and he pats his head, and that's the end of the episode. And I thought this was a great, I've always liked this episode. I've seen it a bunch of times. I thought it was great. It's above average. So I wrote down 7.5 out of 10, but you could easily argue for an 8. This is peak TNG, so season 3, 4, 5, and maybe 6 is like peak TNG era. This is a classic Star Trek episode with learning people's languages. Again, I talked the other day about the Strange New Worlds episodes would try to do something like this, but just was just a check off list of let's rip off this episode and this, let's rip off Enemy Mine, let's rip off Darmock, let's rip off The Enemy, let's rip off Dawn, let's rip off Die Hard. And I think some other people had another list. It's like you just took from everything you could possibly take from. And some people think that it's basically AI is writing this, which could be. I thought they fought against that during the writer's strike. But maybe they are just inputting things and basically AI writes it and then they edit it to kind of change it to kind of make it their own kind of. I don't know. But this was much better done, in my opinion. And it's a classic story, and it's a classic Trek story. So it looks like there might be some people out in the chat. So let me take a look. DJ Play Nice is here. I know exactly the episode you're talking about. Took three words. Darmock and Jalad and Tanagra. Erakudu. Don't know what that means. DJ Play Nice. Oh, and the guy's name, they say it at the end. Dathan. Dathan is the captain's name. So it's now, I'm going to give myself a little like. It's now the portion of the night where I choose, or fate chooses, the next episode. Had a brain fart there for a second. So as you can see, it's still on. So I didn't mess anything up this time. It's roll the dice whether I'm going to mess it up or not. And I'm going to press the randomize again button. Voyager Season 2, Episode 1, the 37S or 37s. I think this is the episode where there was a bunch of marquee that they oh look, Gavin Blackburn is here. Hello, Gavin Blackburn. I think this is the episode where they have the marquee and they're trying to straighten them out, and Chakotay like punches one of them. I don't remember, but it's not a repeat, so that's a good thing. And just want to let everybody know that now I have changed jobs. The episode will be on Wednesdays, so we're keeping Wednesday and Thursdays, so back to back. 8, still the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we'll go from there. Don't anticipate changing jobs anytime soon, so hopefully we can just stick with those days and that time. Unless something comes up, I mean, obviously. Anyway, everyone, I want to thank DJ Play Nice for showing up tonight, and Gavin Blackburn for showing up, and anybody that's out there lurking. and anybody that that watches this in the future. Stay safe, everyone. Don't get too riled up about this whole situation with Charlie Kirk. Um, don't, like, violence is not the answer. I shouldn't have to say that, but you know, but some people, are nutty. But have a good night, everyone. I'm the Dead Man. This has been the Red Hour, and I will see you guys next time, and gals next time.